um, news, what's going on over there. John Martin, are you here?
I am here.
Good evening. The
And you
floor
can
is
see
yours.
my page, can you?
Yeah.
Perfectly. So thank you for being a part of AAM Institute. This is the first one for me to give this kind of a 5-6 minute speech. My background is a helicopter pilot as a profession and also vast interest and thereby also knowledge about what has happened in the past of aviation. And I'm also the CEO and co-founder, along with my business partner Henry Bendix of Copenhagen Helicopter. So if you just move on here, the milestone that has been set in regards to our turf, you could say, is that in September, not last year, but in 23, we started along with our partners, US Denmark, which is the epicenter or the drone test center of Denmark in Odense, along with ourselves, Copenhagen Helicopter, our operator, Copenhagen Air Taxi, who is more than 60 years old of experience and existence in aviation. The University of Southern Denmark and a company called Skypostler, who is a Danish company developing a system, you could say, that makes or creates an electronic air traffic control system. So in the future that we can fly manned and unmanned aircraft together. And that project called NGR 2.0 is set out to survey and investigate and then later evaluate and test, and finally report how or if and when can we implement advanced air mobility in the Danish sector of Danish airspace. This is funded by the EU and the Danish Board of Business Development. And there's also, of course, new projects coming up, because where we started, we thought that the business went in one direction, and as you probably all know, is quite dynamic, this business, and changes now and then in minor or larger directions. So we already know that we need to establish a second project to build upon the NGR 2.0 to kind of finish all the data that we gather. Electrification of aviation in Denmark is a part of a goal of the Danish government, the Danish parliament, that was set out a couple of years ago, that they wanted to have the first neutral domestic route, CO2 neutral, by 25. And now we know that's not going to happen, because not even the sustainable aviation fuel is not allowed 100%, still only 50-50. So they're postponing it a little bit, but they still go for the goal that all the domestic routes should be CO2 neutral in 2030. And this is why we believe that electrification or electrified aircraft for shorter routes will get its foundation set and evolve from there. And just since I just saw there was a lot to talk about drones and not just manned aircraft, I just added who our good partner US Denmark is. Like I said, it's a epicenter of manned and unmanned autonomous aviation in Denmark. It have if anyone needs an airspace up to 3,000 square kilometers of dedicated airspace, simply they can just block off any other kind of traffic. So you can go beyond visual line of sight. And also in August last year, there was a company called Thunderstrike Aviation who built this autonomous drone with a sweepback design that has set out to build their initial European factory there in Odense Airport. If you go over to probably the most important part of AAM is to get the recognition of the public, and thereby also the politicians, like the good fellow from Volocopter mentioned. They had their struggles in Paris, and we have seen the same thing in Denmark when we fly helicopters, that it is quite limited. We used to have a heliport in Copenhagen, but that was closed down due to the expansion of the city for housing, and there was simply just no room because of the noise it makes. So noise is such an important factor to get any kind of success within advanced air mobility. So what we also do with our current helicopter operation is that we interact with our own customers when they meet us. So when they go out flying and some of them are waiting, we try to interact and talk to them. What is AAM? What can it do? Electrification and the response is kind of they are interested, they're curious. They're also surprised that actually we can go airborne by batteries already now, and it's not something in 20 or 30 years ahead. Um, and just to emphasize that the public demand for their acceptance is this has to be um, a circular economy, so they don't want to see the waste. They have still a lot of people thinking that when the battery is done, it's going to be piled up in some kind of a waste junk, and they don't understand that actually can be recycled almost 100% or 95% or so. So there's a lot of articulation we need to do as a business to get the message out, so they can really understand that this is the truth and not something else they had read on Facebook or their cousin's neighbor or whatever it is. Um, Another sentiment we have is that we are in this NGR 2.0 also going to have this survey to get a more local or national knowledge how the Danes uh, are looking at this electrification, not just because we sitting now and then and talking to some customers directly. But we do see that electrification or electric aviation is gaining traction also in the political part. When we started some years ago, nobody believed us and they thought we were just crazy and nutballs. But now it's actually on the agenda. And it also helps that the land-based transportation is also evolving faster and faster, especially with trucks that are using similar sized batteries. Upcoming events. We have this international drone show at the Odense Airport, where we also participated, done that a couple of years. It's purely professional. There's not it's not the Mr. and Mrs. Denmark coming in there, but as you can see here, it's a 2-day event this year. It used to only be one, and this year we're also going to have a dedicated AM area where we can kind of demonstrate in a model or how you can use AM as a public mode of transportation. So going from land-based to air and from air to land-based, etc. We didn't have that before. As you can see, there's a lot of attendees, both domestic and international, and also for those who are playing with drones, military is also quite interested these days in these kind of products. The outlook, what we see is that cost is everything. So if we need to, or if we want to scale this business up, cost is everything. Otherwise, you can't have or expect the normal income to be able to afford these kind of services, which is a problem for many eVTOL developers that their promise doesn't seem to hold, at least for the several first many years. Um, the opportunities is quite positive in our point of view. If we can do the balance of looking beyond what the legacy part of aviation has done and think everything has to be done for the next 50 years because we did it 50 years ago. But we also look back on what we have experienced and the knowledge of aviation, not just think that if we put these two things together, it will fly. There are certain physical laws we have to obey and also be honest about it. We recently, a couple of days ago, made an article or write-up, if you want to, that is called eVTOL's Apparent Issues that we have published on our dedicated Green Aviation LinkedIn page. But the challenge is, as I mentioned before, get the message out, the right message and the correct message, how and if and when or where we can get advanced air mobility launched wherever we are in the world. But again, if we should get the public's attention and acceptance, we need to be transparent and honest. So our work is kind of twofold. We are, of course, by history operating aircraft, especially helicopters. So that's one of the legs. But for this to get up and airborne, we also need the infrastructure. So we also putting a lot of attention on that part as well. So our goal is that we will be utilizing and upgrading existing airports and airfields where they're useful, and if there's none existent where the catchment areas or where the people are, where the customer are nearby, well, a small airfield or heliport or vertiport is needed to be built there. But it has to be simplistic, it has to be cost effective, and not these flamboyant, if you can call it like that, because otherwise the cost and the landing fee is just going to be way too expensive. We work with all parts of life, as you can see down there. Also have partners with different aircraft manufacturers as well. We see these days that it's going to be the normal airplane, C-tall or S-tall, that's going to be the dominant part, and then V-tall, where the normal aircraft cannot land and take off simply due to cost. V-tall doesn't seem to be able to fulfill the low cost as they have set out 5, 6 years ago. That was it for me.
Thank you. Yeah, cost is everything, John Martin, but I think especially considering the new Danish sustainability agenda, your new, so to say, national Green Deal, I would say that the chances are quite high that through the emissions as a vehicle, I think you can go pretty far when it's about cost effectiveness. Yeah.
There's an advantage of flying purely electric in the future
Mm.
in not just Denmark but also the EU, and that is the mandate from the EU of mixing SAF more and more into the fuel all the way up to 2050. We did
Right.
some calculations where when we're coming to 2050, 70%, 70% of the fuel has to be sustainable and half of it has to be eSAF. And
Right.
if that's not being changed, that's going to increase the ticket price from a normal airline is about 120% or so,
Mm.
with
Mm.
the anticipated cost of SAF and eSAF in the future.
Yeah,
So if you fly electric, you can avoid that extra cost.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Um, Great. So we are moving to Hungary now with Attila Sinko. Attila